Greetings fellow guitar travellers, it's Rowan J Parker here presenting to you part 5 of Fusion Essentials, Outside Improvisation. And this week we're going to look at two extremely dissonant and outside choices, that is the diminished scale and the whole tone scale. And the application and leverage of these two will produce some extremely tense and outside sounds. So before we get into that lesson, I'd like to encourage you to have a look at my website, which is www.rowanjparker.com. There's tons of guitar stuff on that site, most of which is free. There's a whole bunch of lessons. There's backing tracks you can download and solo over. There's a store where you can purchase lots of high quality videos and PDFs, all available for instant download, very reasonable prices. I also do lessons over Skype, and there's an area of the website where you can inquire about that, and I'll give you all the details. And furthermore, I should encourage you to subscribe to my website, because if you subscribe to the website, you get access to an exclusive subscriber area with even more free goodness. You get the tablature for the vast majority of my YouTube lessons, all completely free by the way. And there's also subscriber exclusive videos, of which there'll be more and more coming over the course of this year. So again, it's a no-brainer, subscribe to the website for more free goodness. Alright, well, enough of plugging myself and my website. Let's get straight into today's lesson, part 5 of Fusion Essentials, Outside Improvisation. Buckle up for some extremely dissonant effects. Let's do it. I think you will agree that short improvisations featured some extremely out sounds, and we're going to go ahead and explain to you exactly what I'm playing and show you exactly how to do it. So let's do it. Okay, so let's look at our first approach, which is using the diminished scale. Now I just want to stress that I'm not talking about here a diminished 7th arpeggio, so i.e. not this sound, which will probably be very familiar to a lot of you. It's not that one. It's a diminished scale, which is known as a symmetric scale, and it's constructed in two varieties, either what's called half-whole diminished, which is constructed out of semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, and so on, or its inversion, which is tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, and that's sometimes called whole-half diminished. And it's actually the whole half diminished scale that we're going to be using, and specifically, just to orient yourself in the instrument, it's the whole half diminished scale starting upon the note of A, because if you recall we are playing over an A minor 7 chord, so it's A whole half. So I'll play this to you so you can hear the sound of it, and then we'll give you the notes and a little bit of a fingering, and then also look at the scale intervallically. Okay, so here is the whole half diminished scale starting on A. Sounds like this one. interesting, almost sort of spooky sound to it. It seems a bit unresolved, but it's exactly this tension within the scale that we're going to exploit for this outside sound. So how to actually play it on the instrument. If you go to position 5, we're going to play the following notes: A, B, C, then D, E flat, and F. Okay, and the fingering is 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. Now this is useful to know because we're just going to repeat that fingering pattern on each group of 2 strings. So let me go ahead and demonstrate the remainder. So first 6 notes in 5th position. 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, left hand fingering. And then if you move to 4th position, you're going to have these notes. You're going to have F sharp, G sharp, and A, B, C, and D. And the fingering is going to be fingers 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. So you can see that's the same fingering as the previous 2 strings. And then moving on to the B and hat E strings, it is, we have like E flat, F, and I guess you can call this F sharp or G flat, then G sharp, A, and B. Alrighty, so again you can see that's the same fingering. So fingering throughout 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. And you can also easily map the scale out along one single string just by playing tones and semitones. So if we start on A, it'll be a tone, then a semitone, then a tone, then a semitone, then a tone, semitone, tone, semitone. So it's quite easy to visualise because it's a symmetric pattern, and you can repeat this particular fingering pattern every 3 frets, every minor third, so it's quite easy to visualise on the instrument. Alright, so that's how you play one. You have to practice the scale a little bit to get it under the fingers, but there you have it. Let's look at the scale from an intervallic point of view now, so we can look at the notes and see how it relates to our A minor 7 chord, okay? So let's have a look-see. We've got the note of A. Now clearly that is the root of the chord, so a very inside passive sound. Then we have B, which is a 2nd or 9th, which is a nice colour tone on the chord, the 9th. Then we have C, which is the flattened 3rd or minor 3rd. That's a chord tone. So far we've got exactly the same notes that we would find in any of the minor modes, or in fact really any minor scale at all. Well, pretty much. We have root and then major 2nd and minor 3rd. Okay, so nothing is that radically weird yet. However, when we look at the next 3 notes, it all starts to change a bit. So on to the next string, we've got a D. Its relationship to the A minor chord is 4th or 11th, implying the sound of A minor 11. And then we have the E flat note, which is the flat 5, the flattened 5th. Has that sort of diabolic, sort of unstable, you know, it used to be known, this interval used to be known once upon a time as the Diabolus in Musicus, which literally means the devil in music. And you couldn't use this interval, it was forbidden, it was banned, and you could be excommunicated from the church for using an interval like this, or worse, executed even. So yeah, stay away from that devil worshipping interval. However, we like it. Alright, flat 5 is next, and then we've got F, which is going to be the flat 6, the minor 6. And then continuing on, because we've got 8 notes, we've got F sharp, which is the major 6 in relationship to our A minor 7 chord. And then we have G sharp, which is the major 7th of that chord, implying A minor major 7. So you see that although the scale does sound a bit spooky, it has intervals in it which are mostly inside, with a couple of exceptions, in that we have the flattened 5th, diminished 5th, and we have the flattened 6 or minor 6. And all the rest of them you would find in, say, an A melodic minor scale. So it's somewhat outside, but it's not outrageously outside. However, the combination of all the tensions in the scale does produce something which sounds pretty tense and dissonant. So in my demonstration at the beginning of the lesson, I used fairly much exclusively, or completely exclusively, the diminished scale and the whole tone scale. Now in a real playing situation you wouldn't do that because it would just be too much. It would be too unrelentingly tense and dark without resolution. So the idea about these ideas is, rather than apply them constantly, which will be somewhat wearing for your listener, you're going to apply them, along with your other more inside sounds, your more tonal or diatonic sounds. So for instance, playing over A minor 7, you might play, sounds like A Dorian, A minor pentatonic, E minor pentatonic, things of that nature. More inside sounds, and then slip in these outside sounds to create some interesting tension. But I really advise you strongly not to play outside all the time, because although it's quite clever, and you could always justify what you're playing by saying, well, I'm playing this clever idea on top of this chord, it's not very sympathetic to the music you're playing over, I think. So it needs to be used with care, and if you use it with care and judgment, it'll sound fantastic, and you'll really pique your listeners' interest. Alright, so that is the diminished scale. Let's move on to looking at the whole tone scale now. Okay, so let's move on to look at the whole tone scale. Now, unsurprisingly, the whole tone scale is constructed out of tones. It's just tone, 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 tone. So the octave is divided into 6 whole tones. Now, because the distance between every scale degree is the same, i.e. a tone, none of the notes in the scale particularly sound like the root. Any one of the notes in the scale could be construed as the root. So because of that, it has a somewhat ambiguous or floating quality to it. And in fact, there are only 2 different whole tone scales. There'll be a whole tone scale starting on, say, the note of A, and it would include all the inversions of that, and then there'll be a whole tone scale starting on the note of A sharp, and there'll be all the inversions of that. So there's only 2 different whole tone scales. So the whole tone scale that we're going to use for our purposes is actually not A whole tone, but A sharp or B flat whole tone, because that contains more of the interesting notes that we're actually after. So if we proceed to play you a B flat or A sharp whole tone scale, sounds like this. And then we go ahead and look at the intervals in the scale. We can compare it against the chord and see what we've got. So we start off with an A sharp or B flat, and this is a very dissonant interval in a minor chord because it would be the flattened ninth, which is a really out-sounding note on a minor chord. So right away we're into out-sounding territory. And then the next note would be C, and we know that that's the flat third of the chord, so that's no problem. And the next note is D, which is the 4th or 11th, so that's an inside sound. Then we've got E, which is obviously the 5th of the chord. Then we have F sharp, which is the major 6, implying A minor 6. And then we have G sharp, which is the major 7, implying a sort of minor major 7 sound. And then be merely back to A sharp 1 octave higher, or B flat 1 octave higher. So you can actually see that in some ways it's quite an inside sound, with the exception of flattened second or flattened ninth and the major 7. But again, we came across quite a number of these intervals in our melodic minor scale. So although we can see that this is a dissonant approach, it's not quite as outside or wild and wacky as you might think. Because first of all, when I show this to students, I go, well, I've got A minor 7, I'm going to play, B flat whole tone. They go, what? How can that possibly work? But when you look intervallically at the scale and the chords, well, it actually makes quite a bit of sense to do that. Alright, so that's the approach for whole tone. Now, I'm not going to give you a fingering system for whole tone. I'm going to leave you to figure one out yourself, because there are numerous ways of fingering whole tone scale. Suffice it to say, if you're using a whole tone concept, you're just playing everything in tones. So either move up 2 frets or down 2 frets. It's up to you. So I'm sure you can work that one out. Okay, so that's the nuts and bolts of the theory. Let's go ahead and give you a little improvisation demo which uses a bit of a mixture of this outside whole tone and diminished material with some more conventional inside stuff. So I'll play diminished stuff, I'll play whole tone stuff, along with more conventional Dorian, A Dorian, and just a bit of A minor pentatonic and blues, just to give you something familiar to latch onto. And you should be able to identify quite clearly when it starts to go into this whole tone and diminished material, because you'll start going, oh, that sounds interesting, what is that? We hope, anyway. Right, so let's proceed to the little demo, sort of combining everything all together. Off we go. So there we have it. A little bit of combination of several different sounds for you. Hope you enjoyed that. Okay, just got the wrap up to do now. Okay, well that concludes our look at outside playing, and I hope you've enjoyed these episodes and you've managed to get something from them. So if you've not watched the previous episodes, I suggest you go and do so you can see how we've evolved from very inside sounds and incrementally got more and more and more out until we've arrived at the material for today, which is admittedly quite outside sounding. So, just to recap briefly, in the first episode we looked at the application of Dorian, the A Dorian scale, and the A melodic minor scale over our A minor 7 chord. In the second episode we applied the C melodic minor scale over our A minor 7 chord, and this produces the sound called Locrian natural 2, or it could also be called Aeolian flat 5. And then in the third episode, we looked at another melodic minor application. This time it would be G melodic minor, playing that on top of our A minor 7 chord. And this gives us a sound called Dorian flat 2, which is particularly outside. And then in the fourth episode, we looked at chromaticism, how to use that, passing tones basically, tons of that material. And then, of course, in this final episode, we've looked at the application of diminished and whole tone scales. And the idea is that once you've got all these things, under your fingers at your command, you can just pick what colour you want to paint with. You want to paint with a nice neutral colour that's going to be very passive, or do you want a very outside sound? You'll pick this sound or pick that sound. But the point being is you should have a wide range of choices and not just be stuck to just a couple of scales. And I hope that these episodes have helped you to do that. Alright, well, that concludes this whole series. The Fusion Essential series is not going to end here though. We're going to be looking at some other things starting with the next episode, which is all about how to play over dominant chords, different sorts of approaches to play on dominant chords, because I've been asked about this quite often on YouTube, so I'm going to oblige and provide you the information. Alright, well that is it. I just encourage you to look at my website one more time and look at the store. There's lots of things to buy, and if you're interested in Skype lessons you can contact me about that, and subscribe to the website for lots of free goodness. Okay, well that does it. I'll see you on the next episode of Fusion Essentials. It's Round J Parker signing off. Farewell.